Wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III. And we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine.
Hello and welcome to the Nexus. If we really are close to World War III or some other global catastrophe, then perhaps we should be preparing, like all those billionaires who are building bunkers deep underground. We'll be hearing from Tristan Tate's bunker builder and other experts in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at who's building what and why.
The Doomsday clock, which symbolises how close we are to global annihilation, stands at 90 seconds to midnight. Symbolically, that's a minute and a half before the end of the world as we know it. Why? Well,
the rising tensions between the world's two most powerful countries, the United States and China.
Is it just me, or are things feeling tenuous lately?
Extreme weather.
Deadly heat waves.
We've got just 2 years left to make the dramatic changes needed to prevent irreparable damage to our planet. That's the warning from the UN climate chief.
Are you also Googling things like best place to live during World War III?
AI is about to take over completely.
Robots are intelligent beings and deserve to be treated with respect and dignity.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real.
However, don't panic, because there is one small silver lining.
Rich people are going to be okay. Because the hottest trend is billionaire survivalist bunkers.
Yes, the wealthiest people in the world are using big chunks of their money to build subterranean safe havens in case the worst happens.
When you're a billionaire, you either go up to space, you go find somewhere else to live, or you go down.
Underneath this house and underneath this dirt that doesn't look like much is an $18 million underground bunker.
These bunkers are bespoke, but coming as standard are serious levels of security, a blast-proof construction, and top-of-the-range air filtration system. They typically have steel doors and are built at least 2 meters down to protect the wealthy people inside from explosions, disease, and marauding hordes of zombies, presumably. Immediately after the entrance come the airlocks, and all of this is overlooked by a surveillance system. And there's the escape tunnels. Billionaires' bunkers, of course, tend to have a few extras. They could be multi-storey, may have a swimming pool and gym, while others may house bedrooms with dressing rooms, even a cinema. Additionally, and more practically, they often include their own vegetable growing system and water cleaning facility. And here is just a few of those billionaires prepping for life underground. If reports are to be believed, Mark Zuckerberg recently ordered a 5,000 square foot self-sufficient Doomsday bunker on his 1,400-acre compound in Hawaii. It will reportedly feature blast-resistant doors, an indoor pool and multiple bedrooms. And all that will apparently cost a reassuringly expensive $270 million.
A massive Doomsday bunker.
Elon Musk and Bill Gates also reportedly have their own underground bolt holes. Musk on his 6,000-acre estate in Texas. Gates is said to have several around the world. And Amazon's Jeff Bezos has one under each of his homes. You never know where you're going to be when the 4-minute warning comes, after all. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, wants his bunker in New Zealand, a popular spot. The local government was not pleased, however, with the proposed plans, which included a spa, home cinema, meditation pod, and 10 bedrooms, each facing Lake Wanaka.
This exact area was becoming like a doomsday prepper paradise.
And of course, controversial influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan are building a $4 million bunker in their compound in Romania with 10 bedrooms, a living room, and a pool.
All the important things you need to survive the apocalypse.
But if you're worried and don't have millions to spend, fear not. There are also budget-friendly bunkers available, or you can even build one in your back garden for as little as $9,999.
I don't have billions of dollars to build a bunker.
Naturally, not everybody can afford one of these big, giant bomb shelters. Whether it's a big shelter or a small shelter, it should give you the exact same protection.
Well, we saw Tristan Tate in that report, and we've spoken to the American who's actually building his bunker in Romania.
I have spent $3.9 million. All
right, let me at least show him what it is.
You could show him what it is. Because I got my house, yeah, and my house has got, 12 bedrooms? Underneath my house, I need another house. So I'm building a bunker a fallout bunker with 10 bedrooms, stripper pole, living room, all the important things you need to survive the apocalypse.
He's getting 6 bunkers that are each 40 square meters. So he's getting 240 square meters or 2,400 square feet of bunker, which is, in the world of bunkers, it's large.
Okay. And what can it protect him from?
Pretty much anything. The first thing it will protect him from is nuclear fallout. The second thing it will protect him from is any kind of chemical gases, chemical warfare. But the third thing is probably one of the most important ones. It will protect him. His bunker is like a big biosphere. If you go inside that bunker and there was an airborne pandemic that is wiping out the world and everyone's dying because they're breathing it in and it has a 100% fatality rate, a bunker like what I make, not just his, but all the bunkers I make, will protect you from such an event.
How did the Tates get in touch with you?
I believe they just follow me on YouTube, and they found me like everybody else in the world does, is they go and find me on my social media. I didn't even know his last name. I just knew his name was Tristan. He was in Romania. It wasn't till I landed at the airport, he picked me up in this beautiful blue Rolls Royce, and I saw that he was a young guy. And then we went to his house, and I saw those supercars there. And I looked at him, I go, what the hell do you do? You know?
And what did they tell you?
Well, he told me that they had a business that they had sold and that they had invested well into Bitcoin and some other things, and it had done a very good return for them. So they've been quite blessed, and that's how they made all their money.
Did they tell you why they wanted one?
He's like most of my customers. It's part fantasy and it's part, look, when you have all the money in the world and you've got enough money that you're buying supercars and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and you're just parking, you're running out of things to buy. So a lot of my customers, I think buying a luxury bomb shelter is just the next cool item on their list. Of course, they hope they never need it, but they think it's cool to have it. So if you can afford it, why not? You've got more money than God at times. Tristan does have somewhat of a prepper mentality because he's buying the food, he's getting the supplies, he's getting the bunker. So, you know, he obviously is a prepper.
Okay, we're about to bring in our panel, but first let's find out if the general public, Joe Schmo and Jane Doe, also have a bunker mentality.
Would you have an underground bunker if you could?
Morally, no. But to save me and my son, yeah. But for the rest of us, no. To feel like a morally good person, no, I wouldn't.
If I have money, I will do whatever it takes to survive.
Of course I wouldn't live in a bunker.
Probably not. I think I'd rather die.
I mean, if I had money and availability, I don't see why not.
If a bunker's required, a bunker's required.
Maybe if I had all the money in the world, I'd build like a golf simulator down there or something like a man cave. But other than that, I don't know why I would.
Do you think that billionaires know something that we don't?
I think they're more like planning or like constructing some kind of like inevitable doom or war rather than like knowing that something is going to happen before it happens.
It's going to be a situation where they're going to say there's a massive event, they've planned it, and then they'll create the solution, and it's to control people.
They're preparing for the inevitable worst, or they're probably just holding really sick parties down there.
I think they know what's coming in the way of Armageddon.
Bunkers are this kind of tragic image of the last vestige of total control, right? Oh, but if we put a spa in there and plant some trees underground with some lights, we can control everything. This is where the dream led us. A hole in the ground, wondering how to control people to keep us safe from the hordes outside. What a dream.
Okay, let's bring in our panel now, and I'm joined today by J.C. Cole, the founder of American Heritage Farms, which prepares safe havens to be used in the event of a crisis. Also joining us, we have Al Corbi, the president of SAFE, an organization which specializes in armored and fortified bunkers. And finally, we have Bradley Garrett, the author of Bunker Building for the End Times. Spooky, Bradley, spooky. But is it worth building a bunker right now?
Well, in the course of research for my book, I traveled to 8 countries and interviewed about 100 people. And I have to say, everyone has a wide range of prepping practices. For people at the high end, yeah, they might be building a bunker. And the calculus there often for people who are millionaires or billionaires is that they want to spend 1% of their income on security. So that might include a bunker. But most of the people that I ran into are what I would call practical preppers. They're people who are preparing for not necessarily an existential event, but a low-level event. Wildfires, evacuation, the tap running dry. These are everyday emergencies that we're increasingly having to deal with, and so that's what I find people preparing for.
So these people aren't worried about World War III or another pandemic or whatever. They're just worried about particular local issues which might cut them off from their community.
Yeah, most of the people. Recent statistics indicate that about almost 14 million Americans can survive for 30 days on their own. So that's, cut off from all infrastructure. Grocery stores are closed, taps don't work, power's cut off. That's a pretty amazing statistic, almost 14 million people. But most of those people, I would say, are prepared to get through maybe 3 weeks or a month. When you start getting into people who are preparing to bunker down for 2, 3, 5 years, those are rather extreme situations.
Okay, well, let's kick it up a notch. And Al Corbi, let's talk about the billionaires now. They're spending enormous sums of money on their bunkers. First of all, give me an idea of what one of their bunkers might contain and how big it is.
Well, it really depends upon the individual. Some of them that we've done are very elaborate, wonderful living situations underground, like the Ritz-Carlton underground. Others have particular proclivities. They like to golf, so they have putting greens, or they like to race, so they have little go-kart tracks in the escape tunnels. You can have all kinds of elaborate add-ons. But what Brad said holds true, whether you're talking about the extremely wealthy or like me, the everyman. Because if there is a third world war, the chances are the overwhelming majority of the people in the world are going to be more affected by their neighboring community needing supplies than they are the Russians or the Chinese coming over and trying to take my house. The narrative's a little off if you think about it.
So Al, what does that mean for the billionaire who's in his bunker? He feels very safe. His local community needs some supplies. What does that mean? That they're going to come for him?
I think you answered your own question.
Scary.
Of course they are. And in that circumstance, that's really, if there's been a change, the change we've seen since the 70s, or since the end of the Cold War, have been the nature of the bunkers. The bunkers used to be boxes in the ground, things that you could prefabricate, or boxes in the ground. They may have worked back then. They don't work anymore.
Right.
Now you have to have a more holistic approach. You not only have to have that place to go to be safe, and you have your supplies and all, but like in the days of the old forts, out in the West, you've got to protect the fort itself. So now just having a bunker is actually a bad thing because it's a magnet. It attracts problems to you. The community knows who you are. They know what you have. So if all you have is the bunker, like I said, the prefab boxes that get shipped around and pushed in the ground, you're in trouble.
That sounds
you
like
have to do what JC's doing or what we're doing. It's two different approaches, but you have to have that in addition to the bunker, or the bunker actually hurts you.
Wow, yes. But in the event that there is some awful event, and you're a billionaire down in your bunker doing very well, and as you say, it becomes a magnet. Everyone knows that X is in his bunker enjoying a life of plenty, you're starving hungry, you need medical supplies and so on. Have you taken that into consideration when building bunkers and created some sort of, contingency for that?
Well, Mother Nature has always provided the best solutions. She has extreme water, she has extreme fire, she has extreme turbulence. And technology now allows us to harness those things and make the environment outside the bunker very, very unfriendly to anybody that would want to be there. Significant enough that even a second wave of people seeing what happened will turn away and go away.
That's fascinating.
You don't want to be on that property if you're not in the shelter.
Got you. JC Cole, you take a very different approach. You're sort of creating farms that ordinary people can escape to, people who live in cities can escape to. They work together to make a sustainable community. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, yes. If we actually look at it, we won't no longer have something called food security, which means the accessibility to food, because of our very sophisticated delivery system, our just-in-time delivery system. So if for any reason that breaks down, the majority of Americans, and I think also Europeans, no longer have food delivered. So I'm trying to create a model to create many different small local farms, so we get back to food security. Now, in that also is if we have an event that shuts down, let's say, the electric grid or the supply chain, then many of the people just simply won't have food or medicine and will do whatever they have to, which is one of the reasons that if you can afford a bunker, you have a bunker to get away from the threats then the biggest threat is people starving.
And tell us about the farm you're working on at the moment. Where is it? How big is it? And who's invited to come there?
Well, the whole idea is that I had to have Al knows this very well. He's got the most experience. The object is you don't want to tell people where it is, because the people do whatever they have to do. It's kind of like a lifeboat that, when the ship sinks, everybody wants to get in the lifeboat, but the lifeboat can only hold so many people. So the first farm I'm working on is a show farm to show what I have and what we're doing. And the second farm is the, let's say, fallback or bug out location where nobody knows where it is except for the members of the community. So unfortunately, that's the best we can do at this time.
How many members are you going to invite to join?
Well, in one project for me would be 20 families of approximately 5 each. So that's 100 people.
Al, there's a problem with that, isn't there? It's about secrecy and how those 20 families are going to keep it to themselves.
No, it's very interesting. What he's doing by having those families, you almost don't want to even talk this way, but you have to if you want to be accurate. He's building an army. Now, my guess is he's going to have engineers, he's going to have plumbers, he's going to have doctors, he's going to have teachers. He's going to have people there that have skill sets. We have those too. We have our communities that we build. Part of those communities are hunters. The people that live there are trained to prevent the other people there from being harmed. So it's a very 1800s mentality that both he and I have adopted, and the gentleman has reported on in different ways, but it's still the same end. We're trying to get out of the 15-minute city mentality. You will die there, period. Regardless of your wealth, your abilities, you could be MacGyver. You're going to die there.
JC?
We do it on a singular basis.
One of the issues is what's known as operational security, which is straight out of the military, where you basically have your members commit to secrecy, and if they show up and brought extra people, they're not allowed in. Right, so they don't get in the lifeboat if they violated the rules.
Al?
Well, as a matter of fact, the ones that we do that are very elaborate and very singular, they do have jails in them. There is a cell built into each one of these shelters. There are graveyards built ahead of time. The soil has been conditioned to be easily dug. All of the things that you kind of don't think about and you just want to pretend don't exist anymore, they're all part of it.
Al, that's quite an eye-opening thought, that all these basic kind of functions have to be taken care of. Where are you going to bury people? How are you going to defend yourself? Bradley, when you look at these two models, you've got the billionaire bunkers, you've got the kind of community farms. Which one do you think is most helpful in the event that there is some sort of terrible catastrophe?
Well, Al and JC are both making fantastic points here. And the point is that we learned from the Cold War. And the idea that you can just, dig up your backyard, bury a shelter, and think that you're going to put your friends or family in that bunker, close the door, and stay in there for an indefinite amount of time without support, it's unrealistic. So there's a changing nature within the prepper community now, where we're seeing people focus more on collaboration and community building.
Yeah.
There were some experiments that were done during the Cold War where people voluntarily locked themselves in a bunker to see how long they could cooperate before things broke down, and they could put a couple hundred people in a bunker and they would do fine for 2 weeks. But the problem with those experiments is that people knew that they were coming out of the bunker, and they knew when they were emerging from it, they were emerging into the world that they left. Right now, imagine a situation where you go in there indefinitely. And when you open that blast door, you're potentially emerging into a nuclear wasteland outside or whatever. It's really hard to build that as a sustainable model. You can build it, you can engineer it. Technically, we can build it, but the real problem inside the bunker is sociology and psychology, right? It's people start breaking down amongst each other or within their own head. And that's why if you have a farm model and you've got a community that have complementary skills to be able to get each other through an emergency, that's a much more sustainable model.
Okay.
And I think that's why things are moving in that direction.
Well, we're coming to the end of the program. One final question for the panel, starting with you, Bradley. We heard Donald Trump talking about a possible third world war. What do you think is the most likely crisis that would cause people to have a bunker and benefit from that?
Well, so the first thing would be nuclear war, obviously, and there's a difference between building a blast shelter or a fallout shelter. A blast shelter is going to take a hit from a weapon. You probably don't want to build your bunker near a nuclear target. So all you really need is a fallout shelter, and the magic number there is 14 days. If you can take shelter for 14 days while the radiation levels come down to a tolerable amount, then you can emerge from the bunker and begin to rebuild. So, that's one situation where the bunker would be quite important. If you had social unrest, civil war, you might need to take refuge in a bunker.
Al Corbi?
It's civil unrest, in my opinion, it's not a if, it's a when. And when civil unrest occurs, as Brett was saying, with the fallout, you've got about a 2-3 week window, and then you've got your decon chambers and all that. You can live through that. Civil unrest is going to go on forever. And it will mitigate, it will get better and better and better over time. But for that short 90 days, it is going to be probably one of the most dystopian experiences we've ever had.
Just briefly, Al, are you talking about civil unrest being the #1 threat in the United States, or do you mean globally?
No,
globally.
No. Civil unrest is the #1 global threat. It isn't the masked enemy anymore.
And is it particularly acute because both the Democrats and the Republicans seem to be unwilling to accept that the election that is coming up is going to be handled in a way that is honest and fair?
I'd love to be able to say it's that simple, but I see it differently. I see it because we allowed ourselves to become victims to a supply chain that is unsustainable, to electricity that is maybe available, to living too close to one another that's untenable. It's a social situation that we've created. Now, does the political unrest exacerbate it? Of course. But we can get a solar flare. We can get something that affects the grid that has nothing to do with politics. And we will instantly, in a nanosecond, have social unrest.
Got it. Okay, JC Cole?
I agree with Al. Civil unrest and whatever triggers it, it could be the grid going down or the supply chain going down. But I also am very concerned with our magnetosphere is weakening, and we're going into what's known as a grand solar minimum, where the sun may be spitting out rays. And if it starts spitting out gamma rays, the only way to get away from it is underground. And you have to look at You know, if you look at Turkey, they have ancient underground cities that held like 20,000 people. What for? What were they getting away from? And I'd like to put in one other point, Matthew, is that, you know, studying this and working on this daily for years is extremely stressful. So these guys, like Al and Brad, we don't get out of bed to build bunkers for rich people. We get out of bed to try and protect our civilization and our species.
J.C. Cole, Al Corbi, and Bradley Garrett, thank you all very much for your contributions to the Nexus today. Much appreciated. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. If you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, do go to our channel on YouTube. Just type in Nexus TRT World. Until next week then, we hope it comes around. Goodbye.